Humanity entered the galactic stage quietly. There were no great wars, no burning stars, and no loud threats. When human ships first appeared beyond their home system, they came with open channels and simple words. They asked to learn. They asked to trade. They asked to join. Many older species laughed at how small the human fleet was, how thin their armor looked, and how carefully they moved through shared space. The Galactic Council accepted humanity, but not as equals. The council chamber floated in the dark between stars, a massive ring of light and metal. Delegates from hundreds of species filled the seats, their forms hidden behind shields, translators, and symbols of rank. At one small platform stood Ambassador Day, son of Earth. He wore a simple uniform, dark and clean, without medals. His hands rested calmly at his sides as voices echoed around him. Day-Sun listened more than he spoke. He had learned early that the council respected silence more than noise. Humanity was new. New species that spoke too loudly often disappeared from history. Behind him stood Era Lynn, his aide. She was younger, sharpened, and careful. She watched patterns instead of words. She noticed how often human requests were delayed, how often votes turned against them without reason, how often council security ignored insults aimed at Earth. Still, humanity obeyed. Human worlds grew fast. Colonies spread across empty systems the older species had ignored. Humans adapted to harsh planets, thin air, cold stars, and weak suns. Where others saw useless space, humans saw homes. This made the council uneasy. They did not say it openly, but fear grew quietly. In closed sessions, powerful species spoke of balance. They said humanity expanded too fast. They said humans did not respect tradition. They said Earth needed guidance. Guidance soon became control. Trade rules were passed that favored older empires. Human ships paid higher taxes at gates. Human technology was labeled unstable and placed under review. Research permits were delayed for years. Military limits were enforced only on Earth's fleets, never on others. Day-Sun protested politely. He stood before the council and spoke in calm tones. He showed records. He showed numbers. He showed fairness. The council listened. Then they voted against him. Erlin saw the truth forming. Humanity was not seen as a threat yet, but it was seen as useful. Humans worked hard. Humans followed rules. Humans endured. That made them easy to push. Far from the council chamber, Captain Wanru stood on the bridge of a human patrol ship near the edge of settled space. The ship was small compared to alien warships, but it was clean, fast, and well-organized. His crew trusted him, and he trusted them. They were there to protect a trade route that passed close to a powerful alien border. The route had been legal for decades, approved by the council itself. Still, alien cruisers drifted close, scanning human cargo and forcing inspections. Wanru received orders not to engage, not to provoke, not to escalate, so he waited. Each inspection took hours. Each delay cost human merchants money. Each insult from alien commanders went unanswered. Wanru clenched his jaw and followed orders. On Earth, Aquan worked in a research complex buried deep beneath a mountain. She was a systems engineer, quiet and focused. Her team studied propulsion and energy systems, but every design they submitted to the Council Review Board came back restricted, too advanced, too dangerous. Not approved, Mira. Noticed something strange. The restrictions made no sense. The technology humans proposed was no more advanced than what other species already used. In some cases, it was less advanced. She began to study the restriction codes themselves. Late at night, she compared old council rulings. Slowly, a pattern appeared. The rules were designed to slow humans, not protect the galaxy. She shared her findings with her superiors. The report was marked confidential and sent upward. Then it disappeared. Mira was told to stop asking questions. Across human space, similar stories repeated. Colonies denied defense aid. Human votes ignored. Accusations made without proof. penalties applied without warning. Still, humanity did not rebel. Earth leaders believed patience would earn respect. They believed time would change minds. They believed restraint would prove worth. Daysun believed this too. Even as he felt the ground shift beneath him, one cycle a minor species accused a human mining colony of stealing resources. The claim was false. Records proved it. Erilyn prepared the evidence herself. The council ruled. Against humanity anyway. The colony lost its charter. Human workers were removed. The system was handed to another. Erilyn watched Daysun's hands tighten. For the first time, after the session, she spoke carefully. She asked if Earth should reconsider its approach. Daysun answered with a tired smile. He said humanity had survived worse. He said anger would only prove the council right. But Erilyn saw doubt in his eyes. News traveled slowly to the outer colonies. But when it arrived, it stayed. People talked. Not loudly, not publicly, but in homes, ships, and private channels. Why do they hate us? Why do we obey? Why do we bleed while they vote? No one answered yet. On the frontier, Wanru watched alien ships block a medical transport. The transport carried supplies for a human settlement suffering from radiation sickness. The alien commander claimed a security concern. The delay lasted 12 hours. 3 people died before the ship was allowed through. Wanru filed a formal complaint. The council replied. Weeks later, no violation found. Myra Kwan received a quiet visit from an intelligence officer. He did not threaten her. He did not raise his voice. He only told her that her research could be useful someday, and that she should be ready. She asked what he meant. He told her nothing in the council chamber. Daysun stood again before the galaxy. A new motion had been proposed. It limited human colonization range for stability reasons. The vote was already decided. As voices droned on, Erilyn looked around the chamber. She saw something she had missed before. They were not angry. They were comfortable. Humanity made their lives easier. Humans filled empty worlds. Humans built infrastructure. Humans absorbed pressure that might otherwise turn inward. Humanity was a buffer. The vote passed. Daysun bowed his head slightly and accepted the ruling that night. He sent a private message to Earth. It was short and careful. He said the situation was difficult. He said patience was wearing thin. He said humanity needed to prepare. Quietly, Earth acknowledged. Nothing changed on the surface, but beneath cities. Beneath laws, beneath calm words, something shifted. Humanity did not grow angry yet. Humanity grew focused. Erilyn began mapping alliances among minor species. Wanru drilled his crew harder. Myra Kwan reopened old designs and hid them under harmless labels. The galaxy did not notice to the council. Humans were still silent, still obedient, still weak. They did not understand that silence was not surrender. It was restraint, and restraint, once broken, does not return the same. The pressure did not fall all at once. It came slowly, like a weight added piece by piece. After the new limits were placed on human expansion, council officials began visiting human systems more often. They called them inspections. They said they were routine. They said they were for safety. They never visited other species the same way. On a trade station near a red dwarf star, human merchants waited in long lines while alien ships passed freely. Cargo was opened, scanned, delayed, and sometimes rejected for small reasons. A wrong signal pattern. A missing stamp. A rule that had changed without notice. Humans complained through proper channels. Forms were filed. Evidence was sent. Answers came late, if they came at all. Erilyn spent most of her days reading reports now. She no longer believed words spoken in the council chamber mattered. What mattered were patterns. And the pattern was clear. Every rule pushed humans into slower growth. Every delay weakened their position, in private. She shared her analysis with Ambassador Daysun. She spoke softly, choosing each word with care. She said this was not random. She said it was planned. Day-Sun listened without interruption. When she finished, he nodded once. He said he agreed. He also said Earth was not ready. That answer frightened her more than anger would have. On the frontier, Captain Wanru received new orders. His patrol zone was expanded, but his authority was reduced. He was told to report alien movements, not respond to them. He read the order twice. Then once more, his ship was now expected to witness threats, not stop them. Soon after, a foreign security fleet entered the patrol zone without notice. They claimed to be hunting smugglers. They scanned human habitats, flew low over civilian stations, ignored every protest. Wanru requested permission to intervene. Command denied it. The alien fleet stayed for 3 days. When they left, a human station reported missing equipment and damaged systems. No proof was accepted. No action followed. Wanru stood alone on the bridge long after his shift ended. He stared at the stars and felt something heavy settle in his chest. Obedience no longer felt like duty. It felt like betrayal. On Earth, Miraquan watched her research team shrink. Funding was redirected. Projects were merged, then canceled. Officially, this was to meet council compliance. Unofficially, was to slow progress. Myra adapted. She broke large projects into small ones. She renamed systems. She hid advanced work inside basic studies. She taught her team how to speak carefully, how to write reports that revealed nothing important. The work continued underground, quiet and patient. One night, she was called to a secure room she had never entered before. A small group waited inside. Military officers, intelligence analysts, engineers she recognized from other hidden programs. They did not ask her permission, they asked her readiness. They spoke plainly. Humanity was being cornered. The council would not stop until humans were dependent or broken. Myra's work mattered more than she knew. She was told to continue, and to prepare for limits to vanish. Back at the council, Day-Sun faced another motion. This one restricted human defensive systems near shared borders. It was framed as peacekeeping. He argued calmly that humans had followed every rule. He asked why defense was being punished. A senior delegate replied that fear often came from misunderstanding. The vote passed. After the session, Day-Sun did something he had never done before. He did not return immediately to his quarters. He walked through the outer halls of the station, where minor species gathered. He spoke with them quietly. They listened. They shared stories that sounded too familiar. Lost trade routes, unequal rulings, silent punishment. Erlin watched from a distance and understood. What he was doing, he was no longer asking for fairness. He was measuring support. News from the frontier worsened. A human colony near a gas giant lost power after a navigation beacon was shut down by foreign authorities. The shutdown was labeled temporary. It lasted 6 days. During that time, life support failed in several sectors. People died. Wanru arrived too late to help. He delivered supplies, evacuated survivors, and recorded everything. His report was marked sensitive. It disappeared. Crew members began asking questions he could not answer. They asked why humans kept giving ground. They asked when orders would change. Wanru told them to hold, but his voice lacked confidence. On Earth, but public channels remained calm. Leaders spoke of cooperation. Media spoke of patience. Private channels were different. Military training schedules increased. Logistics networks were quietly optimized. Shipyards expanded under civilian labels. Old doctrines were reviewed and rewritten. Humanity was not preparing for war. Humanity was preparing for survival. Erlin compiled a list of council votes from the last 20 cycles. The numbers were clear. Humanity had lost nearly every major motion. Regardless of evidence, she sent the report to Earth with a single sentence: "They will never stop." The reply came hours later: "Understood." Day-Sun felt the shift that followed. Messages from Earth became shorter, less emotional, more precise. One directive stood out: observe, endure, delay. time, was now a weapon. A Council enforcement fleet arrived near a human shipyard under the claim of inspection. Construction was halted. Workers were removed. Access codes were seized, the fleet commander accused humanity of violating limits. Myra Kwan watched the feed from Earth. The shipyard was one of hers, hidden behind civilian contracts. She expected panic instead. The systems shut down cleanly. Nothing important was exposed. The alien fleet left with nothing. They did not know. The real work had already moved. On the council station, Era Lynn overheard a conversation not meant for her. Two delegates spoke openly. Assuming no one was listening, they said humans were too passive. They said pressure needed to increase. They said sacrifice was acceptable. Era. Lynn recorded everything that night. She could not sleep. Day Sun sent another private message to Earth. This one was longer. He described the mood. He described the language. He ended with a warning. "They are deciding how much we can lose Earth," replied with silence. For the first time, that silence felt deliberate. On the frontier, Huan Ru was ordered to escort a human convoy through a contested region. Alien ships appeared almost immediately, claiming the route was under review. They demanded the convoy turn back. Huan Ru requested. Clarification none was given. He followed orders and delayed. He negotiated. He waited. A transport ship suffered a system failure during the standoff. Medical supplies were lost to vacuum. No one died. But the message was clear. Humans were being tested across human space. The same thought spread quietly. How far will they go? The answer was forming, not in anger, not in speeches, but in preparation. Humanity was still bending, but the bend was reaching its limit in pressure. Once it finds resistance, it does not break it the same way. The breaking point did not come with a warning. It came like a routine notice. A council message arrived across human space, stamped with authority and sealed as urgent. It stated that a human frontier world, a mining and settlement colony near a blue-white star, would be placed under temporary council control. The reason given was regional stability. The world was called Haru. Haru was not rich. It was not powerful. It was important only because humans lived there. Over 5 million people called it home. Ambassador Day Sun received the notice moments before the public. He requested an emergency session. It was granted, but delayed. Erilyn read the document again and again. She searched for hidden meaning. There was none, the council had decided. On Haru, warnings came late. Civilian networks were flooded with mixed signals. Some said evacuation was required. Others said it was unnecessary. Council enforcement ships entered orbit within hours. Captain Wanru was 3 jumps away when the alert reached him. He pushed his ship beyond safety limits. His crew did not complain. They all knew. When Wanru arrived, the sky above Haru was already full of foreign ships. They formed a loose ring, weapons powered but not firing. A message was broadcast to the surface. All human defense forces were ordered to stand down. The council claimed this was not an attack. On the surface, confusion turned to fear. Human security units hesitated. Orders from Earth were unclear. Command channels were flooded. Then the first shot was fired. No one ever proved who fired it. The response was immediate. Orbital strikes targeted infrastructure. Power grids failed. Shield generators collapsed. Cities went dark. Wanru received a direct order. Do not engage. He stared at the message until the letters blurred. On Haru, millions ran for shelters that were never meant for war. Emergency systems failed under overload. Fire spread through industrial zones. The council fleets did not target civilians, officially, but they did not protect them either. A human defense platform attempted to activate. It was destroyed in seconds. Wanru broke formation. He moved his ship between a falling strike craft and a civilian transport. His weapons powered up before he could fire. A command override shut them down. Earth had locked him out. He watched helplessly as the transport was torn apart. On the council station, the emergency session finally began. The chamber was full. Voices overlapped. Delegates argued about responsibility. Daesun stood and demanded an end to the operation. He demanded aid. He demanded accountability. A senior delegate replied that Haru was unstable. They said sacrifices were unfortunate. Era Lin felt something. Inside her snap, she activated her. Recorder, the vote was called. Aid was denied. Operation would continue. Daesun did not shout. He did not threaten. He lowered his head. For the first time, he said nothing. The silence lasted too long. Across human space, the feeds from Haru cut out one by one. When limited contact returned, the numbers were clear. Over 2 million dead. The council declared the mission complete. They expressed regret. Earth went quiet. No speeches were made. No threats were issued. No fleets moved openly. The galaxy relaxed. They believed humanity had been taught its place on Earth. Leaders met behind sealed doors. Military and civilian lines vanished. Old restrictions were lifted with a single command. The limits vanished. Mira, Quan received a message marked highest priority. Begin full release. She opened archives no one outside her circle had seen. Designs once hidden were activated. Systems once theoretical were pushed into production. The rules no longer mattered. Captain Chuanru returned to Earth under silence orders. His ship bore damage it could not explain officially. He was summoned to a secure facility inside. He found others like him, commanders, engineers, planners. No one spoke of Haru at first. They did not need to. Era Lin arrived on Earth days later. She carried recordings, transcripts, and votes. She placed them before the leadership. They listened without expression. When she finished, one question was asked, "Can this be proven?" She answered yes. That was enough. Daesun did not return to the council. His seat remained empty. No explanation was given, the council noticed, but did not worry. They believed humanity would grieve. They believed time would soften the loss. On human worlds, mourning was quiet and deep. Names were spoken. Faces were remembered. Anger did not explode. It hardened. Military drills changed tone. They were no longer defensive. Simulations shifted. Scenarios were rewritten. Human fleets began to move slowly within their own space. Nothing illegal. Nothing aggressive. Just readiness. Myra Kwan watched the first full test of a system she had designed years ago and been told to abandon. It worked perfectly. She did not smile. Captain Wan Ru stood before a projection of Haru, now scarred and silent. He accepted a new command. This time, no restrictions were mentioned. Era Lin was assigned a different role. She was no longer a diplomat. She was an architect. The galaxy did not hear any. What they heard was silence. They mistook it for fear. They did not understand that humanity had reached its limit. And limits, once crossed, do not warn again. The change began quietly, hidden behind normal movement and legal language. Human shipyards reported maintenance cycles. Research centers filed updates that looked harmless. Training fleets rotated crews and updated software. To the outside galaxy, nothing seemed different. Inside human space, everything had changed. The old limits were gone. They were not debated or announced. They were erased. Mira Kwan stood inside a facility that officially did not exist. It was deep beneath a dry plain, shielded from scans and wrapped in false data. Around her, engineers worked in calm silence. Screens showed systems waking up for the first time. Adaptive engines adjusted their output on their own. Power cores balanced load without commands. Hull design shifted structure under stress, learning from damage before it happened. These projects had been ideas once, then restricted files, then secrets. Now they were real. Mira walked past a line of test units and checked readouts. Everything was stable. Better than stable? She remembered the council words that had delayed her work for years. Too dangerous. Too advanced? They had been right. Captain Wan Ru took command of a new fleet without ceremony. The ships did not look impressive at first glance. They were smaller than alien dreadnoughts. Their shapes were plain. Their weapons were hidden, but they moved like living things. Huan Ru studied their response times, formation changes, and coordination. Orders were given once. The fleet adjusted on its own. He felt something he had not felt since Haru. Confidence. The crews were different too. They did not shout. They did not celebrate. They trained with quiet focus. Everyone knew why they were here. No speeches were needed. On Earth, leadership circles met daily. Civilian and military planners worked side by side. No one argued about blame anymore. That phase had passed. Now, there was only direction. Erlin stood before a star map filled with markers. These were not targets. They were connections. Minor species worlds. Trade routes ignored by major powers. Systems that had suffered quietly under council rule. Era. Lin had learned something during her time as a diplomat. Power did not only sit in fleets, it sat in agreements. She opened secure channels and began speaking to old contacts. She did not threaten. She did not promise conquest. She spoke of balance. She spoke of choice. Many listened. Some refused. Enough. How? The council noticed small changes first. Votes that once passed easily began to stall. Trade delays appeared in unexpected places. Minor species raised objections that sounded familiar. They did not trace this back to humanity. They assumed unrest was natural. Sun watched all of this from Earth. He had resigned publicly for health reasons. In truth, his role had only changed shape. He reviewed reports and recordings from the Haru session again and again. Every word, every pause, not for anger, for clarity. Human fleets began testing new doctrines far from council borders. Exercises were labeled defensive. Observers were allowed limited access. They reported strange behavior. Human ships did not follow standard formations. They separated and regrouped constantly. They traded roles in mid-flight. No single ship acted as a command center. If one was lost, nothing stopped. Alien analysts dismissed this as chaos. They were wrong, Mira. Quan oversaw the first integration of adaptive intelligence into fleet systems. The intelligence was not a ruler. It did not give orders. It watched, it learned, it suggested. Human commanders remained in control. That was the difference. On the frontier near Haru, a council patrol encountered a human reconnaissance group. The meeting was tense, but polite. No weapons were raised. The human ships scanned and moved on. The council patrol reported feeling watched. That report was ignored. Erlin received confirmation of the first quiet pact. Then the second. Then the third. None were military alliances. They were trade guarantees, shared logistics, mutual warning networks. The council did not forbid these. They had never imagined they would be used this way. Captain Wanru ran a simulation against historical council fleets. The results were decisive. He ran it again with restrictions applied. The results were still decisive. He did not smile. He ordered another run. On Earth, the public learned only fragments. Memorials for Haru were completed. Names were carved. No speeches blamed the council. The message was simple. Remember, the galaxy mistook this restraint for weakness. A council committee proposed new sanctions against human research. The motion passed easily. No response came from Earth. Behind closed doors, Mira Kwan received the notice and archived it without comment. The sanctions no longer mattered. Human supply chains shifted. Production accelerated. Civilian industries adapted overnight. What could not be built openly was built quietly. Time moved differently now, eh? Council intelligence report finally raised concern. It noted unusual efficiency in human logistics. Fleet readiness appeared high, despite restrictions. The report was buried older. Powers did not like hearing that their assumptions were wrong. Erlin attended a private meeting with representatives of a small border species. They asked her a simple question. If the council falls, what replaces it? She answered just as simply, something fairer. They signed Captain Wanru, stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched a fleet drill complete in record time. Damage simulations showed minimal loss. Recovery time was nearly instant. He remembered Haru. He remembered being told not to act. Those words no longer applied. Day. Sun delivered one last message to the council through official channels. It was short. It did not accuse. It stated that humanity would no longer accept rulings made. Without equal voice, no threats were included. The council debated the message and dismissed it as posturing they did not realize. It was a boundary. Miraquan authorized final production phases. Systems once limited to prototypes moved to fleet-wide deployment. No, celebrations followed. This was not victory, it was readiness. Across human space, fleets aligned, alliances settled, and plans finalized. The galaxy still saw quiet. Species. They did not see what had been built beneath. Restraint. They did not understand. That humanity had finished preparing. What came next? Would not be loud at first, but it would be impossible to ignore, the council believed. Pressure had always worked. When a species resisted, more rules were added, more limits, more force shown without being used. In the past, this had always brought obedience, so they pressed harder. A new set of sanctions was announced across the galaxy. Human financial access to shared markets was restricted. Navigation rights through key trade corridors were suspended. Council security fleets were authorized to enforce compliance. The announcement was loud. Humanity's response was silent. Trade. Routes adjusted within hours. Cargo that once passed through council gates rerouted through minor systems. Prices shifted, but human supply lines did not break. Some council worlds felt shortages for the first time in generations. They did not understand why. Lynn watched reports flow in from dozens of systems. Her network had grown beyond expectation. Minor species shared sensor data, trade schedules, and warnings. None of it violated council law. Together, it changed everything. On the frontier, a council enforcement fleet intercepted a human convoy and demanded inspection. The human commander complied. The inspection found nothing. The convoy left on schedule. What the council fleet did not notice was the absence of escorts in nearby space. Human fleets were no longer guarding trade. They were watching. Council movements instead. Captain Wanru received authorization to deploy forward observation groups along disputed borders. These groups did not challenge. They did not block. They recorded every patrol route, every response time, every command delay. Patterns emerged. Council fleets were large, but slow. Their command structures were rigid. Decisions climbed long chains before action followed. Human systems exploited this. Mira. Quan oversaw a test where a single human ship simulated failure near a council patrol. The patrol reacted exactly as predicted. The test ended without incident. The data was complete. On the council station, debates grew heated. Some delegates argued that sanctions were causing instability. Others claimed humanity was manipulating. The market no proof was offered. The louder voices called for direct enforcement. A vote was. Scheduled Day Sun followed the discussion. From Earth, he recognized the tone. It was frustration. Frustration led to mistakes. The vote passed council. Fleets were authorized to seize human assets in shared space. First seizure attempt took place near a busy transit hub. Council ships moved to block a human logistics vessel and ordered it to shut down. The human captain complied. As council boarding teams approached, the logistics vessel activated emergency protocols and released its cargo remotely. The cargo scattered across multiple vectors. Recovery took days. During that time, dozens of council routes were delayed. The human vessel departed unharmed. The incident was labeled a technical issue. It was not the last. Across the galaxy, similar events occurred. Human ships complied, delayed, rerouted, and disengaged. No shots were fired. Yet Council operations slowed to a crawl. Some delegates began to ask a dangerous question. What if humanity was doing this on purpose? Era Lin met with representatives from 3 mid-level species who had long depended on Council protection. Their trade had suffered. Their people were uneasy. They asked her if humans were planning war. She answered, truthfully, no. Humans were planning fairness. That answer unsettled them more than threats would have. Captain Wanru oversaw a fleet exercise that took place close enough to Council space to be noticed. The formation shifted constantly. Sensors masked and unmasked in patterns too complex to track. Council observers reported confusion. They requested clarification. None was given. Mira Kwan authorized limited activation of adaptive countermeasures. During the exercise, Council probes failed to lock targets. The probes reported errors. The Council blamed faulty equipment on Earth. People still mourned Haru. But now they saw results. Council pressure was not breaking humanity, it was revealing weakness. Day-Sun received a report that several Council-aligned corporations had requested direct trade talks with Earth. Bypassing Council channels, he approved exploratory contact. The Council noticed too late. A senior delegate accused humanity of economic warfare during a public session. The accusation drew attention. Other delegates asked for evidence. None was provided. The accusation failed. That failure mattered for the first time. The Council did not speak with one voice. Erilyn watched the fracture widen. She encouraged it gently, never pushing too far. She offered alternatives. Shared systems. Neutral routes. Choice. Captain Wanru received confirmation that Council fleets had begun altering patrol routes unpredictably. The pattern showed nervousness. Nervous forces made errors. He ordered restraint. Human fleets did not advance. They waited. Mira Kwan stood in a control room as a new system passed final testing. It allowed human ships to coordinate without centralized command. Even under heavy interference, she labeled it defensive. The Council would never see it until it was too late. A second seizure attempt ended worse than the first. A Council boarding team found itself trapped between automated safety drones and legal restrictions. The standoff lasted hours. No one fired, but the message spread. Council authority could be challenged without violence. That idea frightened them. Sun prepared a statement, but did not send it. Earth leadership agreed. Silence was still more powerful across the galaxy. Traders, minor governments, and neutral systems adjusted their behavior. Council orders were followed more slowly. Questions were asked. The Council called an internal review. The review found no fault. The problem, they decided, was humanity. A proposal formed. Direct confrontation. Captain Wanru was informed of increased Council fleet movement near a human border world. The movement was legal, but aggressive. He did not respond. He recorded everything. Erilyn felt the shift before the announcement. Her contacts grew cautious. Messages shortened. Fear returned. The Council was losing control, and when control slipped, force followed. Humanity remained calm. Preparation was complete. The Council had made its mistake. They had turned pressure into proof, and proof into resolve. The first shots of the war were not announced. They were reported a Council patrol fleet crossed into a human-controlled buffer zone near a populated system. The move was justified as a security sweep. No permission was requested. Human sensors tracked every ship. Captain Wanru stood on the bridge of his flagship as alerts appeared one by one. The Council fleet was large, older in design, built to intimidate. Heavy armor. Wide formations, they expected fear. Wanru ordered no response. The Council fleet advanced. They deployed drones and probes, flooding the region with signals. Human systems adjusted without commands. Data flowed quietly through adaptive networks. Mira Kwan watched the engagement from Earth. Her systems were active, but restrained. She monitored learning curves, not destruction. The Council patrol fired a warning shot. It missed. The second shot did not. A human escort ship was struck along its outer hull. Damage was light. No crew were lost. That was enough. Wanru. Authorized defensive response. Human ships did not charge. They vanished. Sensor ghosts filled Council displays. Targets split and rejoined. Lock-ins failed. Command signals lagged. Human ships reappeared behind the Council formation, striking engines and control nodes with precision fire. No, ships were destroyed. The Council fleet panicked. Orders conflicted. Formation broke. Huan-Ru disengaged. Encounter lasted 11 minutes. The Council reported it as an ambush. Humanity reported it as self-defense. The galaxy listened. News spread faster than the Council could contain it. Footage leaked. Analysts replayed the battle again and again. A smaller fleet had disabled a larger one without loss. Fear replaced doubt. The Council convened an emergency session. Voices shouted. Accusations flew. They demanded sanctions. They demanded submission. Day-Sun appeared on the feed for the first time since Haru. He spoke. Calmly, he said humanity would defend itself. Nothing more. The Council declared humanity a destabilizing force. Open conflict followed. Council. Fleets moved toward human borders in force. Blockades formed. Trade hubs closed. Human response was measured. Captain Wanru coordinated multiple fleets without central command. Each unit acted independently, but with shared intent. Council attacks met empty space or layered defenses. Human ships struck supply lines, not cities. They disabled relays, not habitats. Myra Kwan authorized full activation of adaptive intelligence across the fleet. The systems learned faster with each encounter. Council tactics failed again and again. Older empires relied on numbers and tradition. Humans relied on change. Erlin worked continuously. As conflict spread, minor species faced pressure to choose sides. She offered protection without domination. Some joined openly, others assisted quietly. The Council fractured. A major battle occurred near a strategic junction world. Council commanders expected a decisive victory. They found layered traps. Human fleets split the battlefield into zones, isolating enemy ships and overwhelming them with coordinated strikes. Council losses were severe. Human losses were minimal. Message was clear. This was not luck. This was design. Miraquan watched. The data streams with grim focus. Every loss weighed on her. Every success carried responsibility. These systems had been created for defense. Now they defined war. Day. Sun addressed the galaxy again. He did not threaten destruction. He explained history. He showed votes. He showed Haru. He asked one question. When does patience end? Many worlds answered silently. Council authority collapsed in contested regions. Fleets refused orders. Trade alliances broke away. The Council attempted a final push. They gathered the largest fleet in generations. Captain Wanru prepared to meet it. Human fleets assembled. Calm and precise. The battle was short. Council command structures failed under adaptive disruption. Ships lost coordination. Retreat turned into chaos. Human forces pressed. Then stopped. They did not annihilate. They surrounded. The Council surrendered. Silence followed. Across the galaxy. Fighting ceased. Myra Kwan shut down combat learning modules. She finally allowed herself to breathe. Erlin began drafting terms. Not surrender. Reform Day. Sun watched the stars and felt no triumph. Only relief. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had survived it. And in doing so, they had changed it forever. The war ended without celebration. There were no victory parades. No burning symbols. no loud claims of dominance. When the last Council fleet powered down its weapons and accepted human terms, the galaxy did not erupt. It went quiet. Across contested systems, ships held position. Trade lanes reopened slowly. Signals that had carried fear now carried questions. What happens next? On Earth, leaders addressed the people with simple words. They spoke of loss. They spoke of Haru. They spoke of restraint. They did not speak of revenge, Captain. Wanru stood aboard his flagship as the final ceasefire confirmation arrived. His crew waited for orders that did not come. Stand down, return home. The war was over. Some crew members cried quietly. Others stared at the stars. Wanru felt the weight finally leave his chest. He thought of the first patrol he had commanded when he was told not to act. Now he had acted, and it had mattered. Mira Kwan shut down the last adaptive combat system herself. The learning cores dimmed, their task complete. She watched the power readings fade and felt something close to grief. These systems had protected humanity. They had also taken lives. She archived the data under strict lock. Some knowledge should never be casual. Erlin worked without pause. Negotiations began immediately. Not all council members had surrendered. Some worlds were angry. Some were afraid. Ara spoke to them all. She did not threaten force. She offered structure. The old council chamber was damaged during the conflict, its authority already broken. A temporary assembly was formed in neutral space. Delegates arrived cautiously, without escorts. For the first time, humanity was not standing alone at the edge. They stood among equals. Daesun entered the chamber without ceremony. His hair had grown gray. His uniform was simple. When he spoke, the room listened. He did not accuse. He explained. He spoke of rules that applied to some and not others. Of patience treated as weakness. Of Haru, the name echoed. He ended with a choice. Reform together, or fracture forever. The vote took 3 days when it ended. The Galactic Council no longer existed. In its place stood a new charter. Power was shared. Enforcement required consent. Votes carried equal weight. No species held permanent control. Humanity did not demand leadership. They demanded balance. Captain Wanru was offered a ceremonial position in the new defense framework. He declined. He requested reassignment to exploration. He wanted to see stars without weapons. Mira Kwan returned to civilian research under open oversight. Her work shifted toward recovery, rebuilding damaged systems, restoring broken worlds. She visited Haru once. The planet was scarred but alive. New settlements rose near old ruins. Names were remembered. Era Lin was appointed as one of the charter architects. She worked with species who had once ignored her. Now they listened carefully. Trust, she knew, would take time. Daesun retired quietly after the charter was signed. He returned to Earth and lived near the sea. He watched waves break and thought of pressure. Pressure could shape stone or break it. The galaxy adjusted slowly. Some old powers struggled to accept equality. Some minor worlds flourished for the first time. Trade grew, conflict shrank, humanity expanded again, but differently. Colonies were built with shared agreements. Defense fleets patrolled with mixed crews. The lesson of Haru was written into law. No world would be sacrificed without consent. Years later, young species would ask about the war. They would ask why humans had waited so long. The answer was always the same, because patience mattered, and so did its limit. Humanity did not rule the galaxy. They changed how it ruled itself, and the stars were quieter for it.